Alright, this is going to be the last section of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take him from surprise here, and he's going to settle into being angry. So whatever surprised him is also going to make him angry. So now I've got my character all stretched out here. I'm going to kind of squash him back down and kind of tilt his head down and get him angry about whatever he's seeing. So that's where I've got to get to. I've got to get all the way down there. So first things first, I'm going to kind of keep these shoulders. Might even, I might cheat it a little bit here. So it kind of seems like he's turning just a little bit. Letting some of this drop back. And then I've got this point on my head. I'm up. Remember, this is happening really quickly. Stretch is coming out, so I'm going to get my nose flattened back to kind of where it is. I've got to think about at some point, how did I draw my eyes at the beginning so that I can kind of come full circle. So there was a point where I was closing my eyes look like that. I might kind of use that shape to help me build. And my original eyes, my normal shape, was all the way back here like this. So I'm going to kind of use some kind of a combination of those two things. Oh, that's not my normal. Where's my number 1? It's in here somewhere because it was also my number 5. Excuse me. Well, I've got to find that before I can film it, but that's okay. So here I go. And I start flattening these and letting them widen back out. I'm going to let one eyebrow lead the action a little. So by having one eyebrow go down a little faster than the other one, or a little further, it'll add a little more dynamism to my pose. I'm going to eventually have my teeth growling. So I want that surprised mouth to kind of start changing shape a little. Thinking about maybe a transitional emotion between the growl and the upsetness. So I'm kind of thinking if I was surprised and then angry, in between I might have some other emotion where I'm just like disgusted or upset or kind of like something like that along those lines. Checking here. Alright, and this is kind of my first drawing of the day. Making a small change, moved the chin down, the nose down, the eyes down, the head down, squashed it back a little more, let one eyebrow drop, both eyebrows drop, one a little faster than the other, let the eye shape change a little, let the nose, I let it slope up to stretch out last time, so I kind of let it soften a little, and here I'm starting to really change the shape of that mouth. And these eyes here. Okay. Some of you are not succeeding at this all the way along. You can go back if you can get it right all the way at the end. You're welcome to go back and turn this in for all the previous days. But make sure you have the right amount of pictures and your movements are nice and all that. Okay? All right. So here I'm going to make this a little darker. There's one. Found my one. Find the, make sure all the mouths that are open are a little darker so they match when I go to film it. It's being a little extra, but I guess the one mouth was dark anyway. Just want them to be consistent. Might be nice to even have the mouth, have the eyes be dark too to match. So that's number 19. That is my first drawing today of today's assignment. On the way to being angry. As I'm thinking about this possibly turning, I'm going to kind of cheat the color over a little more. Dropping the chin some more. I'm actually kind of change the tilt of the head a little too. The eyes will change the fastest usually, so I'm going to let that happen quickly. It's part of when we turned our head, we made the eyes look before our head turned. That's usually kind of what leads the action. And actually, as I tip my chin, my ear almost lifts a little. And the angle is going to change a little. Step behind there. That'll be my drawing number 20, I believe. It's not really my drawing 20 because we had all those ones we duplicated at the beginning. We did, I think, 5 drawings that became 9 frames at the beginning. So we had quite a bit of recycling there. Okay, so I need to fix this hair scenario here. Okay, it's my second drawing for today. The 20th frame in the animation. I don't really want the face to distort so much, so this time I'll show you what I'm going to do to fix that part. Let this move over just a little more. Okay, so to tip my head a little more even, I'm going to kind of just grab this, turn it, and I'm going to trace it so that I've got a little more consistency here in the head. Thinking about being able to see through this is really going to help me. Hopefully you guys have decent vision and cheap paper. Those are the 2 things you really need to make this work. You need amazing vision, but it's got to be decent. Some people have a hard time seeing through this paper, even as cheap as it is. Okay, this is going to be 21 frame. I'm going to look at 20 a sec, just get some of these things right. So I'm narrowing the eyes a little more even. But I'm trying to keep that roundness of the outside edge of the eye. Then I feel like he just closed it. Maybe I'll leave a little bit of gap there, and then next time I'll really close it down completely. So for some reason, my sound just started getting muted all of a sudden, and I'm not sure exactly why. So I'm going to take this drawing number 21, and I'm going to trace the body and shoulders. Here I go. Remember, I'm kind of turning it a little bit So I'm moving that midpoint of the collar to the right a little bit, and then the left shoulder, I'm kind of giving it a little more space, like it's facing more towards us. And the other side, I'm kind of cheating it and cutting it off. It's subtle, but it's definitely noticeable in the final animation. And now I want his head to tilt, but it's not gonna deform anymore. It's not squashing anymore. It's kind of staying the same shape. So I slightly rotate the paper here, and then I'm gonna trace the entire head. And that's gonna make it a lot easier for me. I don't have to redraw it every time now, though I am going to make the eyebrows come down further, and I'm going to change the mouth, and I'm going to kind of make the eyes narrow. But other than those things, I'm going to kind of move it forward. And from 22 to 23, you'll see I'm going to actually do a hold, which means it's going to be the same picture except for some very small differences. Still trailing that second eyebrow, but it's catching up. One of the things about this kind of old school animation where you're drawing each frame by hand, whether digitally or on paper, is it is widely considered to have the most fluid movement, the most movement that is realistic. Now, you may or may not notice, but as my head started tilting down, I let some of that hair in the front kind of fly up, and so that the tips of the hair are kind of staying where they were, and then they're pulling back down behind as the hair comes down. That's something called trailing action. It's part of some other concepts in animation where some things follow other things. And you'll see on the next frame that one of the differences here, the hair is still trailing. In the next frame, I'm literally going to trace the shape of the face, but I'm going to make the hair flop down. So that's drawing number 22, and here comes drawing number 23, which is pretty much going to be a hold. Got to just go over some of my lines, kind of darken them so all my different frames have a similar line weight to them, so I don't get like one really light drawing, one really heavy drawing. That ends up creating like a flashing sensation and making it not look good. And obviously these are just pencil tests. That's what they call them in the industry. The whole movie would get put together in storyboards with sound, and then the storyboards would have be pencil tested, and then they would be inked and colored, and backgrounds would be painted. That's how they'd kind of do it. Even digitally, they do it pretty much that way when they're doing traditional frame by frame animation. So here we go. I'm doing a hold. So I'm literally going to kind of trace over this whole thing. Very few changes. The eyes are going to get more narrow. The eyebrows are going to push down just a little more. I actually change the shape of the tip of his ear a little. Just I move it down just a little bit, almost to show displeasure through some kind of character of his ear. And then that hair kind of flops down. And those are the only changes I make. And I add a little bit of eyelid too, and you can see at the end of this, I'll go back to the frame before this and kind of imply the beginning of that eyelid happening. So that's what I'm doing there. So I'm trying to be consistent. I always want to be tracing up like this so I could see the small changes and differences of the frame I did before. If you're doing this digitally, you use some kind of onion skinning to do this. But this is kind of the old school way to do it. One of the things I like about it is that I can kind of rotate the paper, turn the paper a little, and then trace it so that there are changes, but it's also the same. The hardest thing you've probably done in this whole thing has been animating on arcs, and then also turning the head. Turning the head in a 3D space is much, much harder than some of these where we're just changing the features a little bit, but it's still looking the same direction. And at the end of this, you're going to take all these pictures again, starting from picture 1 all the way through to 26. And I know that's a little confusing because this is picture number 23, but at the end, I actually take 4 pictures of this drawing right here. And here's where that hair is going to flop down finally, like it caught up to the face because the face stopped. And so instead of being trailing, it's gonna actually flop down. So it's been trailing here. I'm showing you that it's been trailing, and now all of a sudden it's flopping down. It's catching up, and it'll even, because it's flexible, it'll even keep going. You can think about like if you were holding a long ribbon and you ran with it, it would kind of follow you. It wouldn't start moving right away. It would wait until you got a little momentum and started pulling it, and then the tip would be the last thing to follow you. And then when you stopped, it would keep going past you, and then eventually it would after it went past you, gravity would make it come to rest straight down. So a little small thing, but it can add believability to your animation. Since I had to record this part after the fact, I'm not 100% sure what I'm saying here. I think I was just kind of redefining some lines. Oh, and this is where I imply some of the eyelids and some of the different changes so they match. Um, Doing a hold like this helps the people know that this is the end of the action, so that the action is stopped and this is the destination. We're no longer on the journey. Helps us focus, helps us see it, and it also helps break things up so that we can enjoy it. Now I'm going to take this whole thing, go over to the animation stand, and take pictures of it, and turn the whole thing from beginning to end into a little movie. And for this, I used 11 frames per second. So you can imagine Disney, I think, films at 24 frames per second. Most anime, when it's a real action scene, it's 24 frames per second. So there's a lot of work goes into animating.